Leela Bennett, a 29-year-old graphic designer from Seattle, woke up to soft light streaming through the curtains of her craftsman-style bedroom. She stretched, feeling the warmth of the sheets, and looked at the empty side of the bed. Ethan, her 34-year-old husband, a software engineer, had already left for his morning jog. Leela smiled, imagining him running through their neighborhood, headphones in, wearing that concentrated expression she loved. She stood up, pulled on a soft gray sweater, and went down to the kitchen. The house they'd bought 2 years ago was their pride and joy. Hardwood floors, white walls decorated with her sketches, and a large window overlooking the cedar trees in the yard. There was a note on the table. Made you coffee. Gone for a run. Love, E. Leela ran her finger over his handwriting, feeling a familiar warmth in her chest. She poured coffee from the pot, added a spoonful of sugar, and sat at the kitchen island, opening her laptop to check her email. "Good morning, champion," Ethan's voice came from the front door. He walked in, slightly out of breath, wearing a black sweatshirt and wiping sweat off with a towel. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and his blue eyes were shining. "Did you run your 5 in record time again?" Leela raised an eyebrow, sipping her coffee. 6 minutes 30 seconds per kilometer, Ethan said proudly, opening the refrigerator and taking out a bottle of water. "I'll be like Usain Bolt soon." "Dream on, Bolt," Leela giggled. "You're already late for a shower if you want to get to work on time." Ethan walked up to her, leaned over and kissed the top of her head. "And what about you today? Are you going to draw your masterpieces again?" "Aha," Leela nodded, opening a folder of sketches for a new client. A logo for some coffee shop. They want something minimalist but with soul. Like I know what that means. "You'll figure it out," Ethan winked, heading for the stairs. "You always figure it out." Leela watched him go, feeling her heart clench slightly at his confidence in her. Their marriage, which had begun 5 years earlier at a tech conference in Portland, had been full of moments like this, small but meaningful. They'd met when Leela, then an intern, spilled coffee on his laptop during a break. Instead of getting angry, Ethan had laughed and offered her his handkerchief. A week later, he'd asked her out to dinner, and they'd been inseparable ever since. The day passed in the usual rhythm. Leela worked on sketches, sitting on the couch with her laptop, while a drizzle fell outside typical Seattle weather. She loved these quiet hours when she could immerse herself in her lines and colors. By lunchtime, she had made 3 versions of the logo, one with a coffee cup silhouette, another with an abstract wave, and a third with a handwritten font. She sent them to the client with a short note. "I hope this matches your vision. Let me know what you think." Ethan returned home around 7 in the evening, carrying a bag from their favorite Thai restaurant. His jacket was slightly damp from the rain, and his tie was already hanging around his neck, half untied. "Pad Thai and mango salad, as ordered," he announced, placing the bag on the table. "You're my hero." Leela jumped up from the couch, hugging him. "How's your day?" "Oh, don't ask," Ethan sighed, taking off his jacket. "The new project is a nightmare. The client wants us to rewrite half the code in 2 weeks. I can already see myself living in the office." "Seriously?" Leela frowned, taking out the plates. "Is this the contract with the medical company?" "Yeah," Ethan nodded, sitting down at the table. "If everything works out, there will be a big bonus. But for now, I just want to survive." "You'll survive," Leela pushed the noodle container toward him. "You're Ethan Bennett, the coding genius." "A genius who wants a vacation," he chuckled, but there was a hint of weariness in his voice. "And how are you? Have the logos been approved?" Waiting for an answer for now, Leela shrugged, twirling noodles on her fork. "But I'm happy with what I did. Maybe even too happy." "That's my girl," Ethan smiled, but his gaze had already slid to his phone, where a notification had lit up. He quickly scanned the message and put the phone face down. "What is it?" Leela nodded at the phone, biting into a piece of mango. "Just a colleague," Ethan waved his hand, "reminding me about tomorrow's meeting. Nothing interesting." They ate, chatting about small things. the neighbor's dog that was digging up their lawn again, the new TV show Leela wanted to watch, Ethan's plan to fix the leaky faucet in the bathroom. After dinner, they settled on the couch. Leela snuggled up to Ethan while he flipped through the channels on the TV. "Maybe we can go somewhere this weekend," Leela suggested, looking at him. "You know, like before. Just you, me, and the road." Ethan thought, rubbing his chin. "Sounds interesting, but I might be busy. I need to finish a couple of reports. Maybe next weekend." "Work again?" Leela pulled back slightly, crossing her arms. "All you do lately is work." "Lil, this is temporary." Ethan turned to her, his voice softening. "This project is a big opportunity for us. If it works out, we can save more for a bigger house. Or a baby." Leela nodded, but there was a slight heaviness in her chest. They often talked about children, about how they wanted a big family, but in recent months those conversations had become less frequent. Ethan was right, the project could make money, but she missed his presence, their spontaneous adventures. "Okay," she forced a smile, "but you owe me a trip, somewhere with an ocean view." "Agreed," Ethan kissed her temple. "The ocean, sunsets, everything you love." The night passed peacefully. They went to bed. Leela buried her face in Ethan's shoulder, listening to his breathing. But when she closed her eyes, a thought flashed through her mind. When was the last time they had spent a whole day together without the distraction of work? She brushed it aside, assuring herself that everything was fine. Their life was perfect, a cozy home, a stable job, plans for the future. What could go wrong? Ethan left for work early that morning, leaving another note: "See you tonight. You're the best." Leela smiled, but the note didn't help her worry. She decided to distract herself by calling her friend Kate, who worked as a marketer at a local gallery. "Hello, design star." Kate's voice was as cheerful as ever. "How are things in your love hut?" "Ha, same old story," Leela laughed, putting her phone on speaker while peeling a kiwi. "Ethan's living at work again, and I'm trying to stay on top of deadlines." "Oh, men and their careers," Kate chuckled. "You should get him out somewhere. Remind him he has a hot wife." "I'm trying," Leela sighed, cutting off a piece of fruit. "He promised a trip, but, work, work, work." "Well, don't let him get too bogged down in code," Kate advised. "He'll forget what your face looks like. Want to meet up this weekend? We'll have some wine and complain about our lives." "Sounds like a plan," Leela smiled. "Just without your dating stories. I'm not ready for this chaos." "Hey, my dating is an art form," Kate laughed. Okay. Call me if Ethan is too busy again." After hanging up, Leela went back to work. She opened her email and saw a message from a client. "Leela, these are great sketches. Let's discuss the details tomorrow at 10 a.m. She responded with an appointment and felt a surge of pride. Her career was on the rise, their home was their little paradise, and Ethan, despite his busy schedule, was still her rock. She looked at their wedding photo on the shelf, they were laughing and dancing in the rain, and decided that everything would be fine. They were a team, and no amount of work projects could change that. Leela Bennett sat in her home studio, a small room overlooking the backyard, where she had set up a wide wooden table covered with sketch pads and colored markers. The Seattle morning light, gray and soft, filtered through the window as Leela scrolled through her email. She was waiting to hear back from a potential new client, a hip startup called Urban Vibe, which was building an app for finding local events. The team was looking for a designer to help with the branding, and Leela had sent in her portfolio last week. Her phone vibrated and a message appeared on the screen. "Leela, we love your portfolio. We'd like to discuss collaboration. Can you meet us at our office tomorrow at 11 o'clock? Leela jumped up in her chair, barely containing her smile. This was a big contract that could take her career to the next level. She quickly typed out a response. "Thanks for the opportunity. I'll be there tomorrow at 11. Looking forward to seeing you." "Ethan!" she shouted, running out of the studio into the living room, where her husband was sitting with a laptop, sorting through some spreadsheets. "I got the contract." Ethan looked up. taking off his glasses. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a hint of stubble on his cheeks. Seriously? With that startup you were talking about? Yes, Leela plopped down on the couch next to him. Urban Vibe. They want me to do their branding. Logo, fonts, all the visuals. It's a huge project. Wow, Lil, that's cool, Ethan smiled, but his gaze slid back to the screen. How long will this take? Well, I don't know yet, Leela shrugged, fiddling with the hem of her sweater. We have a meeting tomorrow. We'll discuss it there. But I think a couple of months for sure. It's a chance, Ethan. If everything goes well, I'll be able to take on more big clients. I'm proud of you. Ethan reached out and squeezed her hand. Just don't forget to sleep, okay? I know about your late-night design marathons. I promise, Leela laughed, but noticed how he had already returned to his tables. Are you digging around in your project again? Yeah, Ethan sighed. The client wants a report by Monday, and the data still doesn't add up. If I don't get it right, the whole team is going to be screwed. Maybe you should take a break. Leela tilted her head. I can order pizza, pepperoni, just like you like it. Sounds good, but I'd rather finish. Ethan shook his head. Wait for me, okay? Just an hour, and I'm all yours. Leela nodded, but a slight disappointment stirred in her chest. She returned to the studio, determined to prepare for the next day's meeting. Opening the Urban Vibe website, she studied their concept, a bright, youthful app for urban dwellers. Leela began taking notes, considering what colors and shapes might work, maybe something with neon accents or bold fonts. The next day, Leela stood in front of the mirror, trying on a dark green blazer over a black turtleneck. She pulled her blonde hair into a neat bun and added small silver earrings. You look like a pro, she said in her reflection, grabbed her bag, and headed to her car. Urban Vibe's office was in downtown Seattle, a trendy loft with exposed brick walls and huge windows. Inside, she was met by the receptionist, a girl with pink streaks in her hair. Leela Bennett, she asked, smiling. The team is already waiting. Come on, I'll show you the way. Leela walked into the conference room where 4 people sat at a long glass table. The first to stand was a man in his 30s with dark curly hair and a light stubble, dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans. Nate Collins, marketing director, he said, extending his hand. His smile was warm, his gaze intense. Pleased to meet you, Leela. We were impressed with your portfolio. Thank you. Leela shook his hand, feeling a slight surge of confidence. I'm glad to be here too. The others introduced themselves. Sarah, the developer, with bright red glasses. Mike, the technical director, with a serious expression. And Claire, the project manager, with a notepad already covered in notes. Leela sat down, spreading out her tablet with sketches in front of her. So, Nate began, leaning back in his chair. We want Urban Vibe to look fresh, bold, but not alienate the average user. What do you suggest? Leela opened her notes. I've studied your website and concept. I think we should use bright, but not flashy colors like deep blue with accents of yellow or coral. For the logo, we could try something geometric, with a hint of city lines like skyscrapers or maps. Interesting. Claire nodded, writing. And the fonts, we need something readable, but with character. I'd suggest something like Montserrat for the headlines modern, but not too fancy, Leela replied. And for the body copy, maybe Open Sans. They go well together. I like it, Nate smiled, tapping his pen on the table. Do you have anything I can watch right now? Leela opened her tablet and showed a couple of sketches she'd made the night before. One logo with an abstract map, another with a V stylized as an arrow. These are just initial ideas, she explained, but I wanted to show a direction. Damn, this already looks cool. Nate leaned closer, studying the screen. Especially that arrow. It's like it's saying, let's go, adventure awaits. Sarah laughed. Nate, are you ready to sell this to investors yet? Hey, I just know what I see, Nate shrugged, winking at Leela. Guess we're on the same page. The meeting lasted an hour. Leela signed a 3-month contract with an option to extend, discussing the timeline and budget. Her task was to develop a full brand book, logo, color palette, fonts, templates for the app, and marketing. When she left the office, she was bursting with energy. She texted Ethan, "The contract is mine. Let's celebrate tonight." He responded half an hour later, "Cool, Lil, busy tonight, but how about tomorrow?" Leela frowned, but waved it off. He was busy, that was fine. The next day, Leela arrived at the Urban Vibe office to start work. She was ushered into an open space with couches, plants, and a coffee machine that smelled of freshly brewed espresso. Nate met her at the door, holding 2 cups of coffee. "One for you," he said, handing her the cup. "With caramel syrup. Guess what?" "Wow, almost," Leela smiled, taking the coffee. "I'm more of a vanilla person, but this will do." "Vanilla, I'll remember." Nate led her to the table where the printouts of their discussions from yesterday were already lying. "Today we'll be brainstorming. We want you to feel our atmosphere." Leela spent the day talking with the team. Nate was the center of attention, joking, throwing out ideas, encouraging everyone. When Leela showed him a new logo sketch, he clapped his hands. "That's it. Leela, you're a genius. Seriously, it's like we're already in the App Store." "Don't exaggerate," Leela laughed, but his enthusiasm was infectious. She didn't notice how hours flew by while they argued about shades of blue and the placement of buttons on the app. By evening, Nate had suggested the whole team go to a bar across the street. "Leela, are you coming?" he asked, putting on his jacket. "We have to celebrate your first day." I don't know." Leela hesitated, checking her phone. Ethan hadn't responded to her last message. "I should probably go home." "Come on, just one cocktail," Nate smiled. "I promise we don't bite." "Okay, one," Leela nodded, feeling a little trepidation. She texted Ethan, "I'll be staying with the team for a while. Be there soon." The bar was loud, with neon signs and indie music. Leela was sitting at a table with Nate, Sarah, and Claire, sipping mojitos. Nate was telling a story about how he'd accidentally sent a pitch deck full of memes to an investor. "And you know what?" he laughed. "They said it was refreshing." "You're incorrigible," Sarah rolled her eyes. "Leela, stay away from him. He drags everyone into his adventures." "Hey, I'm just making life more interesting." Nate winked at Leela. "Right, Leela?" "I don't know yet," she smiled, feeling his gaze linger on her a little longer than usual. "But you're definitely not boring." They talked for another hour, and Leela found herself laughing louder than usual. Nate was easy, alive, and his attention made her feel special. When she finally got ready to go home, he walked her to the door. "Glad you're here, Leela," he said, opening the door. "I think we're going to do something cool together." "Me too," she said, feeling the warmth of his words. At home, Ethan was already asleep, leaving her a note. "Sorry, passed out. Celebrate tomorrow." Leela lay down next to him, but her thoughts were focused on the workday and Nate. The next morning, she received a text from Nate. "Ready for more? Got an idea for a logo we need to discuss." Leela smiled as she typed back, "Go ahead, show me your brilliant ideas." She didn't notice how her heart started beating a little faster. Leela Bennett sat in the kitchen of their craftsman-style home, stirring a mug of tea emblazoned with the logo of a local coffee shop. It was drizzling outside, the patter of raindrops on the glass providing a cozy backdrop. She scrolled through her tablet, checking out the latest sketches for Urban Vibe Bright, neon-accented mock-ups she'd prepared for a team meeting today. Leela was pleased. The logo, featuring a stylized V shaped like an arrow, had already received approval from Claire, the project manager. But her thoughts kept returning to Ethan. Yesterday, she reminded him of a dinner planned at their favorite Italian restaurant, Luisa's, where they were celebrating their first wedding anniversary. Leela wanted to spend the evening alone, without phones or work conversations. But Ethan came home after 9 with tired eyes and an apology. "Sorry, Lil, a customer was acting up. I had to stay late." She swallowed her disappointment, but the aftertaste remained. Today, she decided to give him a chance to make amends. "Ethan, are you home?" Leela called as she heard the creak of the front door. It was 7 in the morning, and she was already getting ready for work. "Yeah, just got in," Ethan said from the hallway. He walked into the kitchen, shaking rain off his jacket. His tie was slightly askew, and there were shadows under his eyes. "Had to cancel my run, it was pouring." "It's a shame," Leela smiled, closing the tablet. "Maybe you'll at least have coffee with me. I made your favorite, with cinnamon." "Sounds tempting," Ethan nodded, but immediately took out his phone, checking his messages. "Just hurry, I have a call with the team at 8. Leela suppressed a sigh as she poured him coffee. "Listen, I wanted to talk about tonight. Do you remember we're having dinner at Lewis's? 7, I made reservations." "Dinner?" Ethan frowned at the screen. "Damn, Lil, I forgot. We have a deadline for the report. I'll probably be out late." "Seriously?" Leela crossed her arms, her voice sharpening. "That's the second time this week, Ethan. You promised we'd spend time together." I know," he raised his hands in surrender. "I'm sorry, really. This project is killing me. Can we move it to the weekend?" "You'll be busy on the weekends too." Leela shook her head, feeling her irritation growing. "Can you at least turn off work sometimes?" "Lil, this isn't just a job." Ethan set his mug down on the table, his tone growing serious. "If we screw up this contract, I could lose my bonus. It's important to us, to the future." "Am I not important?" Leela looked him in the eye. "I'm not asking for much, Ethan. Just one evening." "You're important," he softened, stepping toward her. "Listen, I'll try to finish early. But if that doesn't work out, let's order something home, watch your show. Deal?" "Okay," Leela nodded, but her enthusiasm had faded. "Just let me know if you're going to be late again." Ethan kissed her forehead and went into his office, leaving Leela standing there, looking at her cooling coffee. She knew his project was important, but she missed his attention, their conversations, their laughter. Grabbing her bag and tablet, she headed to the Urban Vibe office, determined to focus on work. The startup's office was buzzing with activity, developers tapping away at their keyboards, someone arguing over a whiteboard with dry erase markers. Leela settled into her temporary desk next to the window and opened her laptop. Her task for the day was to finalize the color palette and prepare a presentation for the team. She was deep in work, selecting shades of blue and yellow, when she heard a familiar voice. "Good morning, design star." Nate Collins appeared with 2 cups of coffee, his dark hair slightly damp from the rain. "Vanilla latte, as ordered." "Wow, you remembered," Leela smiled, accepting the glass. "Thanks, Nate. You're officially my coffee hero now." "I'm trying," he winked, sitting on the edge of her desk. "Well, what do we have? Show me your masterpieces." Leela opened the screen, showing the updated logo and palette. "Here, I added a warmer yellow, like you suggested, and I tweaked the arrow a bit to make it look more dynamic." "Damn, Leela, that's fire." Nate leaned in closer, studying the screen. "Especially that blue one. It's like, like the sky before sunset, only without all the sentimental crap." "That's high praise," Leela laughed, feeling his enthusiasm lift her spirits. "Do you think Claire will approve?" "Claire? She'll be thrilled." Nate sipped his coffee. "And if not, I'll talk her into it. I've got talent." "Modest." Leela shook her head, but her smile did not leave her face. They talked for another 10 minutes, discussing the details of the presentation. Nate suggested adding animation to the logo for the site, and Leela wrote it down, feeling energized. As he walked away to join his team, she found herself watching him go. His ease, his interest in her work, it was so different from Ethan's tired answers. Around lunchtime, Leela received a text from Kate. "How are you? Is dinner with Ethan still on?" Leela replied, "I don't know yet. He's busy again. Maybe we should cancel." Kate called right away. "Leela, are you serious?" Kate's voice was full of indignation. "Did he choose the job over you again?" "Well, not exactly." Leela stepped out into the hallway to keep her voice down. He's got an important project. I get it, but... Damn, Kate, I just want him around. I understand, Kate softened. But you don't have to be so accommodating all the time. If he doesn't come, come to me. We'll open some wine and have a hen night. Tempting, Leela smiled. Thanks, Kate. I'll let you know. Returning to the table, Leela noticed a new text from Nate. Hey, we're having a little bar party after work. You in? She hesitated, but replied, maybe, depends on plans. Her heart sank a little. She wasn't sure if she wanted to go, but the thought of spending the evening with the fun crew sounded tempting. By 5 o'clock, Leela had finished the presentation and sent it to Claire. She responded almost immediately. Leela, this looks great. We'll discuss it with the team tomorrow. Great job. Leela felt proud, but immediately checked her phone. Nothing from Ethan. She wrote, Are you in time for dinner? Just let me know. The answer came half an hour later. Sorry, Lil, can't do it. The client wants revisions. Let's do it tomorrow. Love you. Leela stared at the screen, resentment simmering inside her. She canceled her restaurant reservation and texted Nate. I'm in. What time at the bar? He replied. Cool, 6 at Neon Dive. We'll see you. The Neon Dive bar was crowded. Neon signs, loud music, the smell of hops and lime. Leela walked in, immediately noticing Nate, Saria, and a couple of other crew members at a corner table. She wore black jeans and a loose white blouse, determined to look casual but stylish. Here comes our designer queen. Nate stood up, handing her a bottle of beer. Glad you made it out. Well, I couldn't miss the party, Leela smiled, sitting down next to Sarah. What are we celebrating? Nothing special, Sarah shrugged, adjusting her red glasses. Nate just decided we needed to relax. Hey, I care about the morale of the team. Nate raised his hands. Leela, tell me how you got into design in the first place. You're clearly not the type to just draw squares in paint. Leela laughed, sipping her beer. Well, I loved drawing when I was a kid. My mom would buy me sketchbooks, and I'd fill them in a day. Then I went to graphic design in college, and it all just kind of took off. Yeah, and now you make logos that make us all look cool, Nate winked. Seriously, your style is something else. Do you have a favorite project? Leela thought. Probably branding for a small bakery a couple of years ago. They wanted something cozy, so I made them a logo with a croissant on it. They still send me cookies for Christmas. That's cute, Sarah nodded. I had a client who wanted a website for his cat. Seriously, a separate website with a photo shoot. Wait, what? Leela burst out laughing. And you agreed? Money doesn't smell, Sarah shrugged, and everyone at the table laughed. Nate leaned toward Leela. Hey, I was thinking about our logo animation. Maybe we could make it look like the arrow is being drawn on the screen, like it just kind of appears. Good idea, Leela nodded, taking out her phone to write it down. I can try a couple of options tomorrow. That's why I love you, Nate smiled, and Leela felt her cheeks warm slightly. She quickly looked away, focusing on her conversation with Sarah. The evening flew by. Leela laughed at Nate's jokes, argued with her team about the best soundtrack for work, and even danced to an old hit the DJ played. When she looked at her watch, it was already 9. Wow, I gotta go, she said, standing up. I have to get up early tomorrow. Running away already? Nate pretended to frown. Okay, but you have to come to the next party. It's a tradition. We'll see, Leela smiled, saying goodbye to the team. At home, she found Ethan asleep on the couch, with his laptop on his chest. She covered him with a blanket, but instead of the usual warmth, she felt a slight emptiness. Turning on her phone, she saw a message from Nate. It was nice to see you. Good night, Star. Leela smiled, but immediately pulled herself together. It's just friendship, nothing more. Leela Bennett fixed her hair, looking into the dim mirror in the bathroom of the Neon Dive bar. The music outside the door hummed, mixing with the hubbub of the Urban Vibe team celebrating the successful launch of their new branding. Leela had spent another evening with her coworkers, laughing at jokes and discussing work, but now, at 11 p.m., she felt a little tired. She'd had 2 mojitos, and the alcohol was making her head spin. Time to go home, she thought, checking her phone. There were no texts from Ethan, just her own. Going to be late with the team. Don't wait up. He texted back in the afternoon. Okay, see you at home. Leela emerged from the restroom, weaving through the crowd. The bar was bright, with neon signs and the smell of lime from the cocktails. She found her team at a corner table where Nate Collins, the marketing director, was telling another story, waving his arms. His dark curls fell over his forehead, and his eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Leela found herself smiling just looking at him. Leela, where did you disappear to? Nate noticed her, waving his hand. We're deciding what track to play next. We need your voice. Oh, I'll pass, Leela laughed, coming up to the table. You can manage without me. I'm getting ready to go home, by the way. Already? Sarah, the developer in the red glasses, raised an eyebrow. Come on, Leela, one more round. No, really, that's enough for me. Leela shook her head, grabbing her bag. I need to finish the layouts for the site tomorrow. Strict boss, Nate stood up, finishing his beer. Okay, I'll walk you to the car. I don't want our design star to get lost in dark Seattle. I can handle it. Leela rolled her eyes, but didn't argue. But okay, let's go. They walked out of the bar, the cool night air hitting them in the face. The street was damp from the recent rain, the street lights reflecting in the puddles. Leela pulled out her keys, heading for her car, parked at the end of the block. Nate walked beside her, his hands in the pockets of his jeans. It was fun today, he said, looking at her. You fit right in with the team, like you've always worked with us. Well, you guys never let me get bored, Leela smiled, fiddling with the strap of her bag. Especially you with your stories about investors. Hey, it's all true, Nate said, feigning indignation. That dude actually thought I was joking about the cat meme in the presentation. Leela laughed, feeling the tension from the long day melt away. They reached her car, an old blue hatchback, and Leela stopped, turning to Nate. Thanks for walking me home. Now I won't get lost. You're welcome, Nate smiled, but his gaze lingered on her. He stepped a little closer, and Leela suddenly realized how close he was. Her heart began to beat faster, and the mojito in her blood only increased the warmth in her chest. Leela, Nate began, his voice quieter. You know, I'm glad you're on the team. Not only are you talented, you're just awesome. Thank you. Leela felt her cheeks heat up. She wanted to look away, but his eyes, dark and watchful, held hers. You're okay too, Nate. He chuckled, and there was a moment of silence. Then, as if on impulse, Nate leaned in, and Leela didn't pull away. Their lips met, a quick, soft kiss that smelled of beer and his cologne. Leela froze, her mind screaming that this was wrong, but her body wouldn't listen. The kiss lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to turn her world upside down. Shit, Nate pulled away first, rubbing the back of his head. I'm sorry, Leela, I don't know what came over me. Leela stepped back, her hands shaking as she clutched the keys. No, it's me too, she trailed off, unsure of what to say. I have to go. Yeah, sure, Nate nodded, his face a mix of embarrassment and regret. Good night, Leela. She got into the car without a word, slamming the door behind her. Her heart was pounding, and her mind was racing. What have I done? She started the engine and drove home, gripping the steering wheel as if it would erase the last 5 minutes. The drive home was a blur, and when Leela pulled into their craftsman-style driveway, she sat in the car for another minute, trying to calm herself. It was quiet inside. Ethan was asleep on the couch, his laptop still on, displaying a spreadsheet with some data. Leela carefully closed it, put it on charge, and covered Ethan with a blanket. His face in his sleep was so familiar, so dear, that her throat tightened. She went to the bathroom, washed her face with cold water, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were shining with guilt, her lips still remembering the warmth of Nate's kiss. "It was just a moment," she whispered to her reflection. "It doesn't mean anything." Leela lay down on her bed, but she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, replaying the scene at the car in her head. Why hadn't she stopped? Why hadn't she pushed him away? And why the hell had she felt so good in that second? She rolled over, hugging her pillow, and promised herself it wouldn't happen again. She loved Ethan. It had been a mistake, fueled by alcohol and fatigue. Tomorrow she will keep Nate at bay. Leela woke up with a headache the next morning. Ethan had already left for work, leaving a note on the kitchen table. "Sorry about yesterday, Lil. I'll try to be home early today. Love." She crumpled the note, feeling the guilt growing heavier. While making coffee, she checked her phone and saw a text from Nate, sent at 2 in the morning. "Leela, I'm sorry about yesterday. Didn't mean to embarrass you. It was stupid of me. Can we forget about it? But I still want to work with you. You're incredible." Leela stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She wanted to ignore him, block him out, but something inside her stirred his words, his apology, his admission that she was incredible. It was so different from Ethan's tired responses lately. She knew she should cut off the conversation, but instead she typed, "It's okay, Nate. Let's just focus on work. I'll see you at the office." She hit send and immediately regretted it. But the message was already gone, and Leela felt her resolve to keep her distance weakened. She finished her coffee, packed her bag, and drove to the Urban Vibe office, telling herself she would act professionally. At the office, Leela dove straight into work. Her desk was covered in printed mock-ups, and her laptop was open to a page with a prototype of the app interface. She was tweaking the buttons for the home screen, trying not to think about Nate. But he showed up an hour later with his usual smile and a stack of papers. "Good morning," he said, setting the papers on her desk. "This is from Claire. She wants us to add a couple more icon options for notifications." "Got it," Leela nodded, without looking up from the screen. "I'll get to it." "Listen," Nate lowered his voice, sitting down in the chair next to him. "About yesterday. I'm serious, I'm sorry. I had too much beer, and it was stupid. Are you okay?" "Yeah, it's fine." Leela forced herself to smile, still looking at the monitor. "Forgot, okay? It's just work." "Deal," Nate nodded, but his gaze lingered on her. "But if anything happens, I'm always here. You're awesome, Leela, and I don't want this to ruin our work." "It won't ruin it." She finally looked at him, trying to sound confident. "Let's focus on the icons." Nate smiled, and they began discussing the design as if nothing had happened. But Leela felt his presence, his laughter, his light touches as he displayed something on her screen. By the end of the day, she had finished the new icons and sent them to Claire, but her thoughts kept returning to Nate's message. She knew she should have been stricter, but his attention, his interest in her, was a breath of fresh air after weeks of Ethan's indifference. When Leela got home, she found Ethan at dinner, ordering Chinese takeout and setting 2 plates on the table. "Hey, you're just in time," he said, smiling. "I was thinking we could eat together. No work, I promise." "Cool." Leela sat up, feeling guilt tightening in her chest. "Thanks for ordering." They ate, chatting about small things, the new neighbor who parked in their spot, the movie Ethan wanted to see. Leela tried to be cheerful, but every time Ethan smiled, she remembered the kiss. After dinner, they settled on the couch, and Ethan put his arm around her, turning on a comedy. Lelash snuggled into him, trying to drown her guilt in his warmth, but her phone vibrated. She stole a glance Nate. "The icons are fire. Claire is delighted. You're a genius." Leela quickly put the phone away, but her heart started beating faster again. She knew she should stop, but Nate's response, his praise, his attention, it was all too tempting. She hugged Ethan tighter, promising herself that tomorrow would be better. But somewhere inside, she felt like she had already taken a step that would not be easy to turn back from. Leela Bennett sat at the cafe across from Urban Vibes offices, stirring a vanilla latte. Outside, Seattle was bathed in gray light and pedestrians hurried under umbrellas. She checked her phone, waiting for a text from Nate Collins. It had been a week since they'd kissed in her car after the neon dive party, and despite her promise to herself to stay away, they were still in touch. His text that morning, lunch at 12:30, banner idea, made her heart beat faster. She knew it was dangerous, but she couldn't stop. She texted Ethan, "Going to be late at work. We have some urgent edits. Don't wait until dinner." He responded half an hour later, "Okay, Lil, I'm swamped too. See you at home." His response, short and unquestioning, only reinforced her excuses. Ethan was so absorbed in his project that he didn't notice her absence. Maybe it was his fault, Leela thought, that she was looking for attention elsewhere. Nate walked into the cafe, shaking out his wet hair. His black jacket was glistening with raindrops, and his smile was as infectious as always. "Hey, Star," he said, sitting down across from her. "Aren't you freezing here without me?" "Barely survived," Leela smiled, pushing her cup away. "So what's the deal with the banners? Or is this just an excuse to drag me out to lunch?" "Both," Nate winked, opening the menu. "But first, let's order. I'm starving. Do you want a sandwich or a salad?" "A turkey sandwich," Leela shrugged. "But no tomatoes, I hate them." "I got that," Nate nodded, ordering from the waiter. "No tomatoes for the lady, and a burger for me, double cheese." When the waiter left, Nate pulled out his phone and showed the sketch. "Look, I was thinking that the banners for the app could be animated. Like, the city comes alive, lights come on, people move. What do you think?" "Cool," Leela leaned in, studying the screen. "I can make sketches with skyscraper silhouettes. Maybe add our logo so it looks like it's glowing." "That's why I love you," Nate smiled, his gaze lingering on her. "You always know how to make things better." Leela felt her cheeks warm and quickly looked away. "Well, that's my job," she said, sipping her latte. "What all you can do is praise." "Not only that," Nate chuckled, "I also know how to order coffee and show up for lunch on time." They talked all through lunch, jumping from work to music to movies. Nate told her about the time he got stuck in an elevator with a client, and Leela shared a story about accidentally sending a professor a sketch of a cat instead of a project in college. As they left the cafe, Nate suggested they walk to the office. "5 more minutes," he said. "I don't want to get back to boring reports right away." Leela agreed, and they walked down the wet street, sharing an umbrella. Their shoulders were almost touching, and Leela felt her pulse quicken. "Listen," she began, trying to sound casual. "About that night, we agreed it wouldn't happen again, right?" "Yeah," Nate nodded, but his voice was softer. "But honestly, I can't stop thinking about you, Leela. You're not like everyone else." "Nate," Leela paused, looking at him. "I'm married. This isn't right." "I know," he sighed, looking into her eyes. "And I don't want to set you up. But if you tell me you don't feel anything, I'll back off. Honestly." Leela opened her mouth to say no, but the words stuck. She could feel it, his gaze, his closeness, his interest. Instead of answering, she stepped closer, and Nate, as if reading her, leaned in. They kissed, longer this time, the rain pounding and the street humming. When they pulled away, Leela gasped. "It was a mistake," she whispered, but she didn't move away. "Maybe," Nate touched her cheek, "but I don't regret it." Leela turned away, her thoughts in disarray. "I have to get to the office," she said, quickening her pace. Nate didn't stop her, but she felt his gaze all the way to the door. At the office, Leela was deep in work, finalizing designs for banners. Her hands shook as she drew lines on the graphics program. She tried to concentrate, but every time Nate walked past her desk, her heart sank. He was acting like he always did, joking with Sarah, discussing something with Claire, but Leela noticed him glance her way. Toward the end of the day, he texted, "Are you okay? I'm here if you want to talk." She responded, "I'm fine, just busy." But it was a lie. At home, Leela tried to act normal. Ethan came home late, around 10, with a box of pizza. "Hey, hunger strike," he said, setting the box on the kitchen table. "How's your day?" "Fine." Leela forced herself to smile as she opened the box. "Lots of work. And you?" "Chaos as usual." Ethan took off his jacket, untying his tie. "But I think we're almost on deadline. If I'm lucky, I'll leave early tomorrow." "That would be cool," Leela nodded, taking a bite of pizza. "Maybe we could go somewhere? To a movie or just go for a walk?" "Sounds like a plan," Ethan smiled, but quickly pulled out his phone, checking his email. "Sorry, I have to answer an email. 2 minutes." Leela watched him type, feeling her guilt mingle with irritation. He hadn't even asked her what she'd been doing all day. She cleared the plates, trying to block out thoughts of Nate. When Ethan finished, he hugged her from behind. "Are you okay, Lil? You look tired." "Just a long day," she shrugged, cracking a smile. "I'll go take a shower." In the bathroom, Leela stood under the hot water, her eyes closed. She knew she should stop talking to Nate, but his words, "You're different," kept swirling around in her head. Ethan was her rock, her home, but his neglect, his constant busyness made her feel lonely. Nate saw her, praised her, made her feel alive. She stepped out of the shower, deciding that tomorrow would be stricter. But her phone vibrated. Nate had sent a photo of their logo on his laptop screen with the caption, "Look how cool it looks. You're a genius." Leela replied, "Thanks. We'll work on it tomorrow." The next day, Nate suggested a work trip, meeting a potential partner at a cafe a half-hour away. Claire approved, and Leela agreed, telling herself it was just work. In the car, Nate put on her favorite band, the one she'd mentioned last week. "Surprise," he said, smiling. "Thought you'd like it." "You remember?" Leela raised an eyebrow, feeling her resolve melting. "I'm paying attention," Nate shrugged. "So, tell me, how did you come up with this logo? You obviously have some kind of secret." "No secret," Leela laughed. "I just sat up half the night, drank coffee, and drew until I came up with something worthwhile." "Midnight, coffee, and genius," Nate nodded. "I should try your method." The meeting with her partner went smoothly, but afterwards Nate suggested they stop at another cafe to discuss details. Leela knew it wasn't just about work, but she agreed. They sat at a table, sharing a plate of nachos, and Nate talked about his childhood in Oregon, about sneaking out at night to see a concert. Leela told him about the time she'd painted graffiti on a school wall and gotten caught. They laughed, and Leela didn't notice his hand brushing hers as he passed her a napkin. She didn't move away. "Have you ever done anything you regret?" she asked, looking at him. "Many times," Nate answered seriously. "But sometimes you regret it more if not you do." "And you?" Leela paused, feeling his question hit home. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "but I try not to think about it." They returned to the office, and Nate was professional, but their eyes kept meeting. Leela was working on the banners, but her mind was elsewhere. At home, she was making dinner when Ethan walked in holding a bouquet of daisies. "These are for you," he said, smiling, "for being a pain in the ass on this project." "Thank you." Leela took the flowers, feeling a pang of guilt. "They're beautiful." "Maybe we should go to that Italian restaurant tomorrow," Ethan suggested, hugging her. "I still owe you dinner." "Yeah, go ahead," Leela nodded, but her smile was strained. She put the flowers in a vase, then checked her phone. Nate had texted, "Today was awesome. You make my job more interesting." She replied, "You do too." Leela went to bed next to Ethan, but her thoughts were on Nate. She felt her life split in two: home with Ethan, familiar but empty, and stolen moments with Nate, full of life. She knew she was walking on thin ice, but she couldn't stop. Her phone sat on the nightstand, and every new text from Nate pulled her further away from Ethan. Ethan Bennett sat at the kitchen table in their craftsman-style home, scrolling through work reports on his laptop. It was 8 p.m., and the soft light from his lamp filled the room. Leela hadn't returned from the Urban Vibe office, yet she'd texted that she'd be late for a client meeting. Ethan had gotten used to her late arrivals in recent weeks, but today there was a nagging ache in his chest. He sipped his now cold coffee and tried to focus on the numbers, but his mind kept drifting. Leela's phone vibrated on her desk. She'd left it behind when she ran out that morning. The screen lit up, and Ethan glanced at it. The notification read, "Nate, hey, are you still in the office? I want to discuss the layout." Ethan frowned. Nate. He'd heard the name a few times. Leela's coworker, the marketing director. Nothing out of the ordinary, but something about the tone of the message, the hey, and the informality made him pause. Why was her coworker texting her at 8 o'clock at night? And why had she left her number? Ethan pushed the laptop away and picked up her phone. The screen went blank, asking for the password. He tried their anniversary's 0519, but the phone wouldn't unlock. Leela had changed her password. She used to use the same code for everything, and Ethan knew it by heart. He put the phone back, feeling a lump in his throat. Maybe it was nothing, he told himself. But then why had she changed her password? Hey, are you home? Leela's voice came from the front door. She walked in, taking off her wet coat. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and her cheeks were flushed from the cold. Yeah, right. Ethan closed his laptop, trying to sound calm. How was the meeting? It's tiring, Leela sighed, putting her bag on a chair. The client wants another 100 edits to the layouts. I'm already dreaming of a vacation. I understand, Ethan nodded, watching her take a bottle of water from the fridge. You forgot your phone. It was calling. Leela froze for a split second before turning around. Oh, right, she said, smiling. Thanks for telling me. Something important. I don't know, Ethan shrugged, trying not to show the tension. Some message from Nate. About the models, I think. Oh yeah, Leela picked up the phone, quickly glancing at the screen. He's from the team. We were discussing banners today. Nothing urgent. Got it, Ethan looked at her, trying to catch something in her tone, but Leela was already scrolling through her messages as if nothing had happened. It's late for work messages, isn't it? Well, startups, Leela laughed, but her laughter seemed a little forced to Ethan. We don't have a strict schedule there. Everyone writes whenever they want. Okay, Ethan nodded, turning back to his laptop. But something stirred inside him. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but something was wrong. He decided not to push for now. Leela went to take a shower, and Ethan sat there, staring at the screen but not seeing the numbers. He remembered how Leela had been staying late more often in recent weeks, checking her phone more often, sometimes being evasive when he asked about her day. She used to give him detailed answers about clients, about coworkers, about funny moments in the office. Now her answers were shorter. It's okay, just work. And this Nate. Ethan wasn't paranoid, but a text at 8 o'clock at night from a male coworker, and a password he didn't know. He opened his browser and, without knowing why, typed Nate Collins Urban Vibe. The search turned up a LinkedIn profile, Nate Collins, 32, Marketing Director. The photo showed a man with dark curls, a winning smile, and a relaxed stance. Ethan felt a twinge of irritation. This guy looked like the type who knew how to please people. He closed the tab, mad at himself for even bothering to look. As Leela emerged from the shower, wrapped in a towel, Ethan decided to try again. Listen, he began, closing his laptop. This Nate, does he text you often at night? Leela, brushing her hair, looked at him with mild surprise. Not that often, she said. It's just that we're in the middle of a project. He coordinates marketing, so we talk a lot. Why? Nothing, Ethan shrugged, trying to sound casual. It's just weird that my colleague is texting so late. What, a 24-hour party you guys have there? Ha, almost, Leela smiled, sitting down on the sofa. But it won't be for long. Once we finish branding, it will be easier. You know how it is. Yeah, I know, Ethan nodded, but his gaze slid to her phone, which she held in her hand. It's just, you didn't put a password on your phone before. What, is this a secret mission now? Leela laughed, but Ethan noticed her fingers tightening slightly on her phone. No missions, she said. Someone just took my phone at the office to look at my photos, and I decided to set a password. Nothing special. Got it, Ethan forced a smile, but her explanation sounded unconvincing. He changed the subject. Want to watch something? I found a new documentary about space. Sounds cool, Leela nodded, but then looked at her phone. But I'm going to answer a couple of messages first. 2 minutes, okay? No problem, Ethan turned on the TV, but his mind was elsewhere. He watched Leela type, her face illuminated by the screen. She smiled at something, and Ethan felt his stomach clench. He told himself it was nothing, that he was just tired and overreacting. But doubt had already taken root. The next day, Ethan drove to his company's office, but his concentration was at zero. He sat in a conference room, listening to a colleague explain a new code testing system, but he was thinking about Leela. At lunch, he called his friend Tom, with whom he went to college. Tom worked as an analyst and was always straightforward. Hey, man, Tom answered on the second ring. What's up? You don't usually call in the middle of the day. Oh, nothing. Ethan tapped his pen on the table. I wanted to ask for advice. Leela has a new colleague, Nate. He writes to her in the evenings, and she, I don't know, acts weird. Her phone is password protected. She answers evasively. I'm starting to think something's wrong. Tom paused. Okay, let's go in order. What kind of messages? Straight flirting or just work? I don't know, Ethan sighed. I only saw one. Hey, are you still in the office? I want to discuss the layout. Nothing special, but it was 8 o'clock at night, Tom, and she didn't show me the others. Well, that's no reason to panic, Tom said. Maybe they really are stuck. But the password is weird. Has she done this before? Never, Ethan shook his head. I tried her old code, but it didn't work. She says someone took her phone from the office, but that sounds like an excuse. Listen, Tom lowered his voice. I don't want to wind you up, but if you're feeling uneasy, talk to her. Straight up, no hints. Ask her what the hell is going on. If she starts to evade, then there's something to think about. Yeah, I guess, Ethan rubbed his temples. I just don't want to seem paranoid. Maybe I'm just winding myself up. Maybe, Tom chuckled. But it's better to find out than to guess. And dude, don't go through her phone without asking. It'll only make things worse. I'm not going to, Ethan nodded, although the thought was already flashing. Thanks, Tom. I'll talk to her. When Ethan got home, he found Leela in the kitchen, cutting vegetables for a salad. Hey, he smiled, putting his bag on the floor. I thought I'd help with dinner. What are we making? Just salad and chicken. Leela turned around, wiping her hands. You're early today. Did you meet the deadline? Almost. Ethan took out a frying pan. Just a couple of edits left. How's your day going? It's fine, Leela shrugged, returning to the cucumbers. We were refining the interface. Claire wants more button options, so I spent half the night drawing. Claire or Nate? Ethan asked casually, pouring oil into the pan. Leela looked at him, her eyebrows raising slightly. Both, she said. Nate's in charge of marketing, so he's in on it too. Why ask? It's simple, Ethan shrugged, but his voice was a little more tense. You talk about him a lot. Is he your new boss? Ha, no, Leela laughed, but Ethan saw her quickly look away. He's just a coworker, helping with the project. You're really interrogating me. I'm not interrogating you. Ethan put the frying pan on the stove. I'm just curious. You used to talk about everyone on the team, but now it's just Nate and Nate. Oh God, Ethan, Leela rolled her eyes, but her tone was sharper than usual. Because he does the same thing I do. We work together. It's normal. Okay, Ethan raised his hands. Just asking. Don't be mad. Leela nodded, but they cooked the rest of the meal in silence. Ethan watched her as she set the table, noticing little things. The way she checked her phone, the way her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her fork. After dinner, Leela went to her studio, saying she needed to finish her sketches. Ethan stayed behind to clear the dishes, but his thoughts were on her phone, lying on the couch. He walked up to it, staring at the black screen. All it would take was the password. He could try her birthday or something. But Tom's words came back to him. Don't pry without asking. Ethan put the phone back and turned on the TV, trying to push the suspicions away. But they were still there. He knew he had to talk to Leela. Ethan Bennett sat in his home office, staring at his laptop screen. Outside, Seattle was engulfed in the evening gloom, and rain pounded the roof of their craftsman-style home. It was 10 p.m., and Leela was late again at the Urban Vibe office, sending a text. Working on final mock-ups. Be out late. Ethan didn't respond. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, a tension building in his chest that he hadn't been able to ignore since he'd seen Nate's notification on her phone a week ago. The suspicions that had started with that text were nagging at him. Leela had become secretive. She locked her phone with a new password, answered evasively when he asked about work, and often smiled at the screen when she thought he wasn't looking. Ethan tried to convince himself that it was just stress from her new project, but his gut told him otherwise. Today, he decided to check if there was something he was missing. He opened a browser and logged into their shared cloud storage account, where they kept family photos, documents, and backups. Leela used it to save her work files, and Ethan knew her password. She hadn't changed it in years, unlike her phone. He clicked on the Leela's work folder, feeling guilty for intruding, but curious. Among the logo sketches and mock-ups, he noticed a folder called Archive. It was created recently. Ethan opened it and froze. There were screenshots of the messages, some photos, and a text file with dates. He clicked on the first screenshot. It was a chat between Leela and Nate. The messages started out innocently, discussions of banners, jokes about coffee. But then the tone changed. Nate wrote, "You looked cool today. That sweater is awesome." Leela replied, "Ha, thanks. You look great in that jacket too." Ethan scrolled further. Nate, lunch tomorrow. Just you and me. Leela, sounds tempting. Where? His stomach clenched. He opened a photo of Leela and Nate at a coffee shop, smiling, their heads close together. Another photo showed Nate with his arm around her shoulders, in front of a city sign. Ethan felt the blood rush to his face. He opened a text file, a list of dates and places. October 17th, Bluebird Cafe, 1 p.m. October 20th, Neon Dive Bar after work. These weren't work meetings. They were dates. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his breathing heavy. He had thought their marriage was solid 5 years together, plans for kids, their cozy home. But here was proof that Leela, his Leela, was seeing someone else. He closed his laptop, but the images from the text messages were still in his head. He wanted to scream, to break something, but instead he forced himself to breathe evenly. He would not make a scene. Not now. He needed the facts, all the facts, before he did anything. Ethan went back to his laptop and started copying files to his external drive. Every screenshot, every photo, every text file. He worked methodically, like he was on an engineering project, but his hands were shaking. When he was done, he logged out of the cloud and cleared his browser history so Leela wouldn't notice. Then he texted his friend Tom, who he'd consulted last week. "Tom, you were right. I found Leela's text messages with that guy. This isn't just work. What should I do?" Tom responded 10 minutes later, "Dude, this sucks. Come over to my place and we'll talk. Don't do anything rash." Ethan looked at his watch. 10:30. Leela hadn't returned yet. He grabbed his jacket and keys, leaving a note. "Gone to Tom's. Be back late." Tom's apartment was a half-hour away in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Tom answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, holding a bottle of beer. "Come in," he said, nodding toward the couch. "You look like you've been run over by a truck." "That's right." Ethan sat up, rubbing his face. "I found her text messages, Tom. She and Nate, they're dating. Dinners, bars, pictures. She even saved it all, like it's normal." "Damn," Tom whistled, setting his beer down on the table. "This is serious. Are you sure this isn't just flirting? Maybe they're just hanging out. No, Ethan shook his head, taking out his phone and showing a screenshot. Here, look. They schedule meetings when I'm at work. She tells me they're urgent edits, but she's sitting with him in a cafe. Tom scrolled through a couple of messages and sighed. Yeah, this doesn't sound like friendship. What are you going to do? Talk to her. I don't know, Ethan clenched his fists. I want her to confess. But if I start now, she might deny everything. I copied everything I found. I want to collect more so she can't get away with it. Clever, but careful, Tom frowned. If she finds out you've been digging through her files, it could come back to haunt you. Have you considered a lawyer? Not yet, Ethan shook his head. But maybe I should. The house is in my name, and most of the savings too. If it comes down to divorce, I don't want to be left empty-handed. Then find someone, Tom nodded. I have a contact, a friend who is a family lawyer. I can give you his number. Just consult him so you know your rights. Yeah, go ahead. Ethan pulled out his phone, jotting down a name and number. Robert Klein, attorney. Thanks, Tom. I just can't believe this is happening. I understand, Tom clapped him on the shoulder. But you're strong, you'll figure it out. Just don't keep it to yourself, okay? If you want to talk, I'm here. Ethan nodded, finishing the beer Tom had brought him. He got home after midnight. Leela was already asleep, her phone on the nightstand. Ethan looked at her, feeling a mixture of anger and pain. She looked so peaceful, so familiar, but now he knew what she was hiding. He lay down on the couch, unable to sleep next to her. In the morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of the coffee maker. Leela was in the kitchen, in her pajamas, pouring coffee. Good morning, she said, smiling. You came home late yesterday. Is everything okay? Yeah, Ethan nodded, trying to sound casual. Just stayed late at Tom's, discussing work. Cool, Leela put the mug in front of him. I'm in the office late again today. Claire wants the final version of the interface by Monday. Got it. Ethan took his coffee, watching her. Will this Nate be there too? You spend a lot of time with him. Leela froze for a second, but quickly smiled. Well, he's on the team, so yeah, but it's just a job, Ethan. Why are you so curious? I'm just curious, he shrugged, but his gaze was attentive. You know I love it when you talk about your work. Ha, then prepare to be bored, Leela laughed, sitting down opposite. Today, we will argue about the size of buttons, the glamorous life of a designer. Ethan nodded, but her ease only increased his suspicions. She was lying, and she did it so naturally. He finished his coffee and went into the office, deciding to contact his lawyer. At lunch, he called Robert Klein and set up a meeting for the next day. The lawyer's office was in downtown Seattle, in a building with large windows. Robert, a man in his 50s with a short gray beard, greeted Ethan with a handshake. Mr. Bennett, sit down, he said, gesturing to a chair. Tell me what brings you here. Ethan took a deep breath. I think my wife is cheating on me. I found correspondence with her coworker. They are dating, planning dates. I copied everything, but I don't know what to do next. I understand, Robert nodded, taking notes. This is a difficult situation. Do you have evidence? Screenshots, photos? Yes, Ethan took out a flash drive. This is all I found. Correspondence, photos, meeting dates. Robert plugged the flash drive into his laptop and flipped through the files. This is serious, he said. If you're considering a divorce, this evidence could help, especially when it comes to dividing up property. Is your house and savings in your name? Yeah, Ethan nodded. The house was bought with my money, and the account is mostly mine. But I'm not sure if I want a divorce. I just want to be prepared. Wise, Robert nodded. My advice, continue gathering information, but don't do anything impulsive. Don't tell her what you know until you're ready. I'll prepare documents to protect your assets in case the situation worsens. Thank you. Ethan felt a little relieved. How long will it take? A couple of days of basic training. Robert closed his laptop. If you decide to move on, let me know. And Mr. Bennett, hang in there. It's tough, but you're doing the right thing. Ethan left the office feeling a little more confident, but still crushed. He returned home, where Leela was already sitting on the couch with her laptop. Hey, she smiled. You're kind of quiet today. Is everything okay? Just tired, Ethan shrugged, setting his bag down. Long day. How are you? Okay, Leela closed her laptop. We've finished the interface. Maybe we should celebrate, order some sushi. Maybe, Ethan nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked at her, trying to see the Leela he loved, but he saw only lies. He knew he had to gather more evidence before he took the next step. But every look at her, every smile she gave him, made it harder. Ethan Bennett sat in the living room of their craftsman-style home, watching a documentary about volcanoes on the TV. The volume was muted, and he could barely follow the story. His mind was on Leela, or rather, on the messages he'd found on her cloud storage the day before. Photos, messages, plans to hang out, they were all playing in his head like a broken record. He'd been up most of the night, lying on the couch to avoid her. Now, on Friday night, he waited for her to get home from work, trying to keep his temper under control. Leela walked into the house around 7, shaking rain off her coat. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and she was clutching a grocery bag. Hey, she said, smiling, I got all the supplies for tacos. I thought we could have a Mexican night. What do you say? Sounds okay, Ethan nodded, not taking his eyes off the TV. His voice was even, but inside he was fighting the urge to ask where she'd been and who she'd been with. Leela set the bag on the kitchen counter and began laying out the ingredients: tortillas, ground beef, avocado. You're quiet today, she noted, opening the refrigerator. Is the deadline still pressing? Yeah, Ethan shrugged, changing the channel. A lot of things. I understand. Leela took out a frying pan. I'm also swamped. But I decided not to stay late today. I want to spend time with you. Ethan remained silent, feeling her words cut him. Spend time with him. After she'd been dating Nate behind his back for weeks, he clutched the remote, but forced himself to answer, Cool. Tacos are good. Leela looked at him, her brows furrowing slightly. Are you okay? She asked, chopping an onion. You seem, I don't know, it's distant. Just tired, Ethan stood up, heading toward the kitchen. Need help with anything? Yeah, you can grate some cheese. Leela pushed a grater and a piece of cheddar towards him. Listen, I was thinking, maybe we could go somewhere this weekend. To the mountains, or at least to the park. Just you and me, without work. I don't know, Lil. Ethan began grating the cheese, avoiding her gaze. I have reports to finish. Maybe next week. Work again? Leela stopped, holding the knife. Ethan, you've been talking about nothing but work for a month now. I miss us. Me too, he said, but his voice was colder than he intended. But now is not the time for travel. You know how it is. Leela sighed, turning back to her cutting. I know, it's just, okay, forget it. Let's at least eat properly. They cooked in silence, the only sounds being the clack of a knife and the sizzle of ground beef in a frying pan. Ethan helped assemble the tacos, but his movements were mechanical. He couldn't look at her without remembering the texts. You looked cool. Lunch tomorrow, just you and me. Leela, on the other hand, tried to be cheerful, telling him about a client who wanted a unicorn logo. Ethan nodded, but his responses were short. Funny. At dinner, Leela tried again. Remember when we went to Oregon? She said, taking a bite of her taco. We stayed in that cabin, and you tried to make a fire, and it kept going out. Yeah, Ethan forced a smile, but his mind was elsewhere. It was fun. Maybe we can do it again sometime. Leela looked at him, her eyes searching for warmth. I'd like to do this with you again. We'll see, Ethan shrugged, pushing his plate away. I'm full. I'll go work a little more. Already? Leela frowned. Ethan, you just sat down. Maybe we should watch a movie. I found a new comedy you might like. Not tonight, he stood up, putting his plate in the sink. Got to finish a couple of spreadsheets. Good night, Lil. Calm down, she said quietly, watching him go. Ethan went into the office, closing the door. He heard Leela clearing the dishes, turning on the TV, but he didn't return. He opened his laptop, but instead of working, he stared at the copied files from her cloud. Every message, every photo cut like a knife. He knew he should control himself, gather more evidence, but her attempts to get closer only made the pain worse. The next day, Saturday, Leela got up early and made breakfast pancakes with berries, his favorite. Ethan came down to the kitchen, drawn by the smell of coffee. "Good morning," Leela smiled, setting a plate in front of him. "I thought we'd start the weekend off right." "Thank you." Ethan sat down, looking at the pancakes. They looked delicious. "I tried." Leela pushed the syrup toward him. "Listen, I'm serious about the trip. Even if it's not to the mountains, let's just take a walk. In the park where we always feed the ducks. Please." "Lil, I told you." Ethan cut off a piece of pancake without looking at her. "I have a ton of work. Maybe tomorrow." "You'll be busy tomorrow, too." Leela crossed her arms, her voice sharpening. "Ethan, what's wrong? You've been like a stranger for the last few days. If I did something, tell me." "You didn't do anything," he answered too quickly, and his tone was colder than necessary. "Just stress. Give me time." "Okay," Leela nodded, but her eyes were shining with hurt. "But I'm trying, Ethan. I really want us to be like before." "I know." He forced himself to meet her gaze. "I'm sorry. It's just, this isn't the best time." Leela said nothing, finishing her breakfast. Afterwards, she went to her studio, saying she would finish a few sketches. Ethan was left alone, feeling guilty for his coldness, but unable to overcome it. He knew she was lying to him, and her attempts to regain closeness seemed hypocritical. He opened his laptop and checked their shared calendar, noticing that Leela had added a team meeting for Monday evening. He wrote it down, deciding to keep an eye on her schedule. Meanwhile, Leela, sitting in her studio, felt the guilt tighten in her chest. Ethan was cold, and she couldn't blame him. She knew that her secret meetings with Nate had changed her. She'd had lunch with him again yesterday, and though they'd kept it work-related, his hand had brushed hers as he passed her a napkin, and she hadn't pulled away. Her phone was on the table, and she could see an unread text from Nate. "You're feeling a little pensive today. Is everything okay?" Leela opened the chat, her fingers freezing. She knew she had to stop. Ethan was drifting away, and it was her fault. She typed, "Nate, I need to take a break. There's too much going on. Let's just work, okay?" She hit send and exhaled. Nate responded a minute later, "I understand. I'm here if you change your mind." "You're awesome, Leela." She deleted the message, deciding that was it. She needed Ethan back, and needed their marriage back. She walked down to the living room, where Ethan was reading something on his phone. "Hey," she said, sitting down next to him. "I was thinking maybe we could have a game night, like the old days, with Monopoly and pizza." "Not today, Lil." Ethan didn't even look up. "I have a couple more letters, maybe another time." "Okay," Leela nodded, feeling her enthusiasm fading. "Just let me know when you're ready." "Yeah," he nodded, and she walked back into the studio. Ethan watched her go, his heart aching. He knew he had to talk to her, but he couldn't yet. He opened his email and wrote to his lawyer, Robert Klein. Found another appointment on her calendar. "I want to continue gathering evidence. What's next?" That evening, Leela ordered pizza, hoping the food would bring them closer together. They ate in the living room, watching an old sitcom. Leela tried to joke, remembering their first dates, but Ethan responded with monosyllables. "Remember when you spilled wine on my blouse?" she said, smiling. "I thought you were hopeless then." "Yeah," Ethan nodded without smiling. "It was funny." Leela fell silent, feeling the distance between them growing. She wanted to tell him everything, to confess, but the fear of his reaction stopped her. After dinner, she went to bed, and Ethan stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling. He knew that couldn't go on like this, but for now his plan was simple. Observe, gather facts, and protect himself. Leela lay in bed, looking at the empty side of the bed, promising herself that tomorrow would be better. She would stop talking to Nate and get Ethan back. But his coldness scared her more than she cared to admit. Ethan Bennett sat in the living room of their craftsman-style home, clutching a folder of printouts. Outside, Seattle was a gray gloom, rain pounding the windows, creating a monotone backdrop. It was Sunday morning, and Leela was still asleep upstairs. Ethan had kept his distance for the past few days, texting her briefly, avoiding her attempts to get closer. But after a week of collecting evidence texts between Leela and Nate, photos, meeting dates he'd found on her cloud storage, he knew he couldn't keep quiet any longer. Today, he was going to lay it all out on the table. Ethan laid the printouts out neatly on the coffee table, screenshots of texts where Nate had written, "You looked hot," and "Lunch, just you and me." Photos of them smiling at a coffee shop, a list of appointments from her text file. He could feel the pain and anger clenching inside him, but his face remained calm. He didn't want to yell. He wanted her to see the truth and answer for it. Yesterday, he'd received a letter from his lawyer, Robert Klein, confirming that the divorce papers were ready. Ethan had signed them that morning, deciding there was no turning back. Footsteps sounded from above. Leela came down to the kitchen, her blonde hair disheveled, and her pajamas the same ones with cats he'd given her for her last birthday. She yawned, turning on the coffee maker. "Good morning," she said, not looking at him. "Want some coffee?" "No," Ethan stood up, his voice even but cold. "Leela, we need to talk. Right now." Leela turned, her eyebrows raised. "Okay," she said, walking toward the living room. "What's wrong? You seem serious." "Sit," Ethan nodded toward the couch. Leela sat, her eyes watching him warily. He picked up the folder and placed it in front of her. "Open it." "What is this?" Leela frowned, opening the folder. Her face went pale when she saw the first screenshot, her correspondence with Nate. She flipped through a few pages, her hands shaking. "Ethan, where did you get this?" "From your cloud," he crossed his arms, standing in front of her. "You forgot to go out. I found everything. The correspondence, the photos, your plans to meet Nate. Don't deny it, Leela. I know everything." Leela closed the folder, her eyes filling with tears. "Ethan, it's not what you think. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to." "Mistake?" Ethan shook his head, his voice icy. "You dated him for weeks. Dinners, bars, pictures. You lied to me, told me it was a job. It wasn't a mistake, Leela. It was a choice." "No," Leela jumped up, her voice shaking. "It wasn't like that. I felt alone, Ethan. You were so busy, you didn't notice me. Nate was just. He was there, he was listening. But it didn't mean anything." "Nothing?" Ethan stepped toward the desk, gesturing at the printouts. "You saved those messages, Leela. You planned dates with him while I was home, thinking we were a team. You think that's nothing?" "I didn't mean to hurt you." Leela began to cry, her hands clenched into fists. "I know I messed up, but I tried to stop. I told Nate we had to stop. I love you, Ethan. You have to believe me." "Trust?" Ethan laughed, but it was bitter. "You chose him when I was struggling. I worked like crazy so we could build a future, and you ran to him because he listened. I can't trust you, Leela." "Please." Leela stepped toward him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It was stupid, I know, but I don't want him. I want you. We can fix this. Let's go to a psychologist. I'll do whatever you say." Ethan looked at her, his heart breaking. Part of him wanted to hold her, to believe that it was possible to forget. But the other part of him, the part that had seen her smile in the photo with Nate, couldn't forgive. "I filed for divorce," he said quietly but firmly. "The papers are ready. I want you to pack your things and go." "What?" Leela froze, her eyes widening. "Ethan, no. You can't. We're married. We can work this out. Please, don't do this. I gave you everything, Leela." His voice wavered, but he continued. A home, support, love, and you lied to my face. I can't live with this. Pack your things. I don't want you here. Ethan, Leela fell onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. It's not fair. I know it's my fault, but you won't even give me a chance. Are you just throwing me out? It's not fair. Ethan raised his voice for the first time. It's not fair when I trusted you and you dated someone else behind my back. I'm not throwing you out. I'm protecting myself. You made a choice, now live with it. Leela was sobbing, her shoulders shaking. Where should I go? She whispered. This is my home, Ethan. I gave everything here. This is my house, Ethan corrected, his tone hard. It's in my name. I'm not leaving you on the street, Leela. You have a week to find a place. But I don't want you here much longer. Are you serious? Leela looked up, her eyes red. After 5 years, you're just kicking me out? You ruined it yourself. Ethan turned away, unable to look at her tears. I can't pretend it didn't happen. Go away, Leela. She was silent, only her sobs breaking the silence. Ethan went into the study, closing the door. He heard Leela moving around the living room, collecting printouts, then her footsteps on the stairs. He sat at the table, staring at the blank screen of his laptop. His hands were shaking, but he did not allow himself to cry. He did what he had to do. An hour later, Leela knocked on the door. Ethan, her voice was hoarse. Can I talk? Please? He opened the door, but remained standing. What else? He asked, his tone cold. I don't want it to end like this. Leela held the phone, her eyes puffy. I know it's my fault, but I'm willing to fix it. I can quit if it helps. I don't want to lose you. You've already lost me, Ethan shook his head. This isn't about work, Leela. This is about trust. I can't look at you and not see those messages. This is over. But I love you. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. You can't just throw away everything we had. We planned for children, a future. You threw it away when you started with him, Ethan interrupted. Not me, Leela. You. I'm not discussing this. Pack your things. I'm serious. Leela stepped back, her face twisted in pain. Okay, she whispered. I'll leave, but you're wrong, Ethan. You'll regret this. Maybe, he shrugged, but his voice was firm. But it's my decision. Goodbye, Leela. She went upstairs, and Ethan heard the drawers of the closet open. He returned to the living room, gathered up the printouts, and put them away in a folder. His heart was pounding, but he felt a strange relief the truth was out. He knew it would be hard, but he couldn't live with a lie. Leela came down half an hour later, her bag over her shoulder. I'll spend the night at Kate's, she said, not looking at him. I'll be back tomorrow for the rest. Okay, Ethan nodded, standing by the door. I'll be at work. Leave the keys when you're done. Do you really want this? Leela looked at him, her voice almost pleading. Just erase me. You did it yourself. He opened the door. Go away. Leela left without looking back. Ethan closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the tension ease. He walked back into the living room, sat on the couch, and opened his laptop. There was an email from his lawyer, papers filed. Court will set a hearing date. Hang in there, Ethan. He closed the email and looked at their wedding photo on the shelf, laughing and holding hands. He took it down and put it in a drawer. This was the end, and he knew he had to move on, even if he didn't yet know how. Leela Bennett stood in the living room of Kate's house, clutching the handle of her duffel bag. Rain pounded the windows of her Capitol Hill apartment, and Seattle looked gray and lifeless outside. Yesterday, Ethan had laid out printouts of her and Nate's text messages in front of her, accused her of cheating on her, and told her he was filing for divorce. His words, "You chose him when I was having a hard time," still echoed in her head. Leela had spent the night on Kate's couch without sleeping a wink, and that morning she had returned to their house to get her clothes and laptop. Ethan was at work, as promised, and she had left her keys on the kitchen table, feeling like her life was falling apart. Kate, her marketing friend with the bright red hair, walked into the living room with 2 mugs of tea. "Here you go," she said, handing one to Leela. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." "Thank you." Leela took the mug, but her hands were shaking. She sat down on the couch, staring at the floor. "Kate, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart." Kate sat down across from her, her face serious. "Leela, I love you, but let's be honest. You ruined this. You knew what you were doing to this Nate guy, and you kept going. Ethan didn't deserve this." "I know." Leela closed her eyes, her voice shaking. "I screwed up, but I didn't want it to end this way. I thought Ethan and I could get through this." "Get over it?" Kate raised an eyebrow. "Leela, you dated someone else for months behind his back. Did you really think he'd just shrug and say, okay, let's start over?" "No, but," Leela swallowed, her eyes filling with tears. "I tried to stop. I told Nate we had to stop. I wanted Ethan back, but he won't even talk to me." "And you blame him?" Kate shook her head. "Leela, he found your messages, your photos. I wouldn't want to talk either. Give him time. Or, accept that this is the end." Leela wiped her tears with her sleeve. "I can't just accept it. This was my home, my life. I want to at least try." "Then try," Kate shrugged. "But don't expect him to run back. You have to realize what you've done." Leela nodded, but inside she was screaming in pain. She pulled out her phone and opened the chat with Ethan. Her fingers froze, then she typed, "Ethan, please talk to me. I know it's my fault, but I want to make this right. We can go to counseling, I'll do anything. Just give me a chance." She hit send and stared at the screen, but there was no response. An hour later, she wrote again, "I'm at Kate's. Please answer." Silence. Kate noticed her looking at her phone. "Leela, stop torturing yourself. He won't answer until he's ready. Go take a shower, eat. You can't sit there staring at a screen all day." "You're right," Leela sighed, putting her phone away. "Thank you for letting me in. I'll find an apartment soon, I promise." "Take your time," Kate softened. "Stay as long as you need. But Leela, you need to pull yourself together. You can't cry all the time." Leela nodded and went to the bathroom, but the tears kept flowing. She felt lost, homeless, Ethanless, helpless. After her shower, she decided to text Nate. He was part of her mistake, but maybe he could support her now that everything was falling apart. She opened their chat and typed, "Nate, this is bad. Ethan found out about us. I'm at a friend's. Can I talk?" Nate responded half an hour later, "Wow, Leela, that's harsh. Sorry about that. I'm busy today, but how about tomorrow? Call me if you want." Leela frowned. His response was polite but cold. She called him, hoping to hear the warmth he'd given her before. "Hey, Leela," Nate answered on the third ring, the noise of the bar in the background. "What happened?" "Hi," Leela clutched her phone. Ethan found our correspondence. He filed for divorce. I moved in with a friend. I just need support." "Damn, that sucks." Nate paused. "Look, I'm really sorry, but, it makes things a little complicated. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Complicates it?" Leela frowned. "Nate, we were both in this. I thought you, cared." "I care," he answered quickly. "But Leela, you're going through a lot of trouble right now. Divorce, moving. I'm not sure I can be the one for you. Let's just be friends, okay?" "Friends?" Leela felt her voice shake. "Are you serious? After everything that happened?" "Hey, don't be mad," Nate lowered his voice. "I was honest with you. We had fun, but I didn't sign up for this kind of baggage. I'm sorry, Leela. If anything happens, text me, okay?" "Goodbye, Nate." Leela hung up, her hands shaking. She threw the phone on the couch, feeling the loneliness wash over her. Nate, who had seemed so considerate, had run away just when her life had gotten complicated. She was alone, without Ethan, without Nate, without a home. The next day, Leela drove to the Urban Vibe office, hoping work would distract her. But the atmosphere in the office had changed. As she walked in, Sarah, the developer with the red glasses, glanced at her and quickly looked away. Claire, the project manager, said hello, but her smile was strained. Leela sat at her desk, opening her laptop, but noticed two colleagues whispering and glancing at her. Around lunchtime, Claire called her into the conference room. "Leela, sit down," she said, closing the door. "We need to talk." "Okay," Leela sat up, her stomach clenching. "Something with the project?" "Not really." Claire folded her hands on the table. "Look, I know you're going through some personal stuff right now, and I sympathize, but there are rumors going around the team about you and Nate. People are saying you were having an affair." Leela felt the blood drain from her face. "Who said that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. "It doesn't matter," Claire shook her head, "but it affects the atmosphere. Colleagues talk, customers start asking questions. One of them, from Bluebird Cafe, said he wasn't sure you were reliable. We can't afford that." "It's not fair," Leela clenched her fists. "I did everything for this project. My layouts, my branding, it's all on me. How does this relate to my work?" "I understand," Claire nodded, "but reputation is important. We're not firing you, Leela, but your contract is in question. If the clients refuse, we'll have to renegotiate." "Reconsider?" Leela stood up, her voice shaking. "Claire, I gave everything I had to this project. You can't just throw me out because of gossip." "It's not gossip if it's true." Claire looked her in the eye. "I don't want to pry into your life, but you have to understand what this looks like. Think about what you can do to fix it." Leela left the conference room, her cheeks burning. She returned to her desk, but work was slow. She saw Nate talking to Sarah across the office, but he didn't even look her way. By the end of the day, she learned that Bluebird Cafe had turned down her designs, asking for another designer. Another client, a local bar, had pulled their banner request. Leela realized that her career, which she had spent years building, was falling apart. She returned to Kate's that evening, feeling wrecked. Kate was in the kitchen making pasta when Leela walked in. "Oh God, you look terrible," Kate said, wiping her hands. "What happened?" "The job is going to hell." Leela slumped onto the couch. "Everyone knows about me and Nate. Clients are backing out. The contract is in jeopardy. I'm losing everything, Kate." "Oh, Leela." Kate sat down next to her, her voice softening. "I'm so sorry, but you should have known this would come out. Office romances rarely stay a secret." "I didn't think it would come to this." Leela covered her face with her hands. "I thought Nate would be there, but he just ran away. And Ethan, he won't even answer." "Leela," Kate put a hand on her shoulder, "you can't fix this now. Focus on yourself. Find a new job if this contract falls through. And stop texting Ethan. Give him space." "I don't want to give up space." Leela raised her head, her eyes red. "I want him back. I want my life back." "Then work on it." Kate stood up. "But not like this. You can't just beg. Show me you're changing. In the meantime, eat your pasta and go to bed. Sleep. Tomorrow is a new day." Leela nodded, but inside she felt empty. She opened her phone and saw that Ethan hadn't responded. She texted again. "Ethan, I know you're angry, but I'm ready to change. Please give me a chance." She waited, but the screen remained dark. Leela lay down on the couch, feeling her world shrink down to Kate's tiny apartment. Homeless, financially broke, her career on the line, she was alone. Leela Bennett sat on the narrow bed in her rented studio apartment in Seattle, staring at the cracked ceiling. The apartment was tiny, just one room with a small kitchenette and a bathroom barely big enough for a shower. The furniture consisted of a yard sale bed, a folding table, and two chairs. The city hummed outside, but inside, the only sound was the ticking of the wall clock she'd hung to fill the void. It had been 3 months since Ethan had kicked her out of their home after finding out about her affair with Nate. Leela now worked 2 jobs, freelancing for small clients during the day and waiting tables at a local coffee shop at night to cover rent and bills. Her life, once full of plans and comfort, had become an endless cycle of exhaustion and loneliness. She opened her laptop, checking her email. Her contract with Urban Vibe had ended after rumors of her affair with Nate had damaged her client's trust. New projects were few and far between, mostly business cards or banners for local stores, nothing like the large-scale commissions she'd taken on before. Leela sighed, closing her empty inbox and picking up her phone. She hadn't texted Ethan anymore. His silence after her last messages had been a clear answer. Nate had disappeared from her life too, sending a few polite messages before he stopped responding altogether. Leela was alone, and the feeling was heavier than she'd expected. The phone rang. It was Kate, her friend, with whom Leela had been staying for the first few weeks after the breakup. "Hey, Leela," Kate's voice was cheerful, despite the late hour. "Are you alive in there? You're not answering my messages." Alive, Leela forced herself to smile, although Kate couldn't see it. "Just a ton of work, you know." "Yeah, I know," Kate chuckled. "But you can't hide in your hole forever. Let's meet. Tomorrow at lunch at our coffee shop on Pike Street." "I'm not sure, Kate," Leela rubbed her eyes. "I have a shift until 3, and then I have to finish one logo." "Leela, stop it," Kate raised her voice. "You work like a robot. 1 hour won't kill you. I'll treat you, okay?" "Okay," Leela gave in. 1 o'clock, but only 1 o'clock. "Deal," Kate laughed, "and put on something other than your gray sweatshirt. You don't live in a cave." Leela hung up, feeling a little warmth from Kate's concern. But as soon as the call ended, the silence of the apartment fell again. She stood up, went to the window, and looked out at the city lights. Her thoughts went back to Ethan, their morning coffees, his smile when he brought her daisies. Then to Nate, his easy jokes, his attention that had drawn her in so much. She knew that her betrayal had been more than just a reaction to Ethan's coldness. It had been her weakness, her selfishness, her desire to feel wanted, and now she was paying for it. The next day, Leela walked into a coffee shop on Pike Street, her jeans and black sweater the most decent thing left in her wardrobe. Kate was already sitting at a table, holding a latte and scrolling through her phone. "Wow, you're just in time," Kate smiled, pulling out her chair. "Sit down. I ordered you a cappuccino." "Thank you." Leela sat up, looking around the cozy cafe with its wooden tables and the smell of freshly baked goods. "How are you?" "Fine," Kate shrugged. "Work, dates, everything as usual. And you? How's your new reality?" "Don't call it that," Leela winced, sipping her cappuccino. "Reality is working from morning until night to stay in the apartment. And, well, loneliness." "Leela," Kate leaned closer, her voice growing serious. "You can't punish yourself forever. Yeah, you messed up, but you're not the first one to make a mistake. What are you doing to get out?" "I don't know," Leela shrugged, looking into her cup. "I signed up for therapy. First session next week. Thought maybe it would help me figure out why I, well, did what I did." "It's a step," Kate nodded. "Therapy is great, but you have to stop living in the past. Ethan's not coming back, Leela, and Nate's not a hero either, by the looks of it." "I know," Leela squeezed her cup. "Nate just ran away as soon as things got serious. And Ethan, I still can't believe he just wrote me off. 5 years, Kate, and he didn't even want to talk." "He's hurt." Kate looked into her eyes. "You broke his heart, Leela. I'm not excusing his coldness, but you have to understand his side. Give him time, and give yourself a chance to start over." "Start over?" Leela smiled bitterly. "I have no home, almost no work, and I sleep on a bed that creaks like a cart. Where do I start?" "Yourself," Kate pointed a finger at her. "You're talented, Leela. Find new clients, restore your reputation, and stop feeling sorry for yourself. It's not the end of the world." Leela nodded, but Kate's words sounded like a distant goal. She finished her coffee, and she and Kate chatted about her new projects at the gallery, but Leela's thoughts kept wandering to her mistakes. After lunch, she returned to the coffee shop where she worked as a waitress and spent her shift delivering orders and smiling at customers, although inside she was aching. That evening, back at her apartment, Leela opened her laptop and found the website of a therapist a colleague had recommended. Dr. Emma Lawrence, a specialist in family crises. Leela booked a session via Zoom, paying the last of her spare money. She hoped it would help, but so far she felt only emptiness. At the first session, Leela sat in front of her laptop, looking at Dr. Lawrence, a woman in her 40s with short dark hair and a warm smile. "Hello, Leela," Emma said, adjusting her glasses. "Tell me what brings you here." Leela took a deep breath. I ruined my marriage. Cheated on my husband with a coworker. He found out, kicked me out, and filed for divorce. Now I live alone, work 2 jobs, and I don't know how to cope. This is a difficult situation, Emma nodded, taking notes. Let's start with how you feel now. What emotions are overwhelming you? Guilt, Leela swallowed. I know it's my fault, but also anger, at myself, at Ethan, at Nate, and loneliness. I've never been so alone. It's good that you admit it, Emma smiled. Guilt is natural, but it can be destructive if you don't work with it. Tell me why you started this affair with your colleague. What prompted you to do it? Leela paused, looking away. Ethan, he was busy with work. He stopped noticing me, stopped being who he used to be. And Nate, he was attentive, complimenting me, making me feel special. I thought it was just flirting, but then I didn't stop. You mentioned Ethan being distant. Emma leaned closer. But why did you choose to have an affair instead of talking to him? What was stopping you from saying, I miss you? I tried, Leela shook her head. But he was always busy. I felt invisible. And Nate, he was right there. It was easy. Easy, but with consequences, Emma nodded. Leela, this is an important point. You made a choice, but it was based on your need for attention. This does not justify cheating, but it helps to understand why it happened. Let's try to figure out what you were looking for in this novel and how you can find it in yourself. Leela nodded, feeling a little relieved to have someone listen without judgment. They talked for an hour, discussing her feelings, her marriage, her mistakes. Emma gave her an assignment, write down her thoughts every night to track her emotions. Leela logged off from Zoom feeling a little lighter, but the pain of losing Ethan and their lives was still there. That evening, she was sitting at her desk, doing another freelance job, a business card for a local hairdresser. Her phone vibrated, and she saw a message from her former colleague, Sarah. Leela, how are you? I heard you left Urban Vibe. If anything, text me. I know a couple of clients who are looking for a designer. Leela replied, Thanks, Sarah. That would be awesome. I'm in. She went to bed, staring at the blank wall. Therapy was a start, but the road ahead seems long. Leela knew that her betrayal was not only a reaction to Ethan's coldness, but also her own weakness wanting instant comfort instead of fighting for their marriage. She closed her eyes, promising herself that she would work on herself, even if the pain of losing her home, her love, and her old life would linger for a long time. Leela Bennett sat at the small folding table in her rented studio apartment, sipping tea from a cracked mug. Outside, Seattle was bustling with morning traffic, and the room smelled of burnt toast, her failed attempt at making breakfast. It had been 6 months since Ethan had kicked her out of their home after discovering her affair with Nate. Leela worked 2 jobs as a freelance graphic designer during the day and as a waitress at a coffee shop at night to pay the rent and bills. Her life was routine: work, sleep, the occasional visit with her friend Kate, and weekly sessions with her therapist. But this morning, her thoughts were interrupted by her phone, which was sitting next to her laptop. She opened the social media app she hadn't used in weeks and scrolled through her feed. Her eyes fell on a post by their mutual friend Tom. The photo showed Ethan standing next to a shiny black motorcycle. He was smiling, his blue eyes sparkling, and next to him stood a woman, a brunette with a short haircut, wearing jeans and a plaid shirt. The caption read, "Congrats to Ethan on his new horse and Emily for putting up with him." Leela felt her heart clench. She clicked on the woman's profile, Emily Parker, a school teacher, 32. Her page was filled with photos of them with Ethan. drinking coffee in the park, cooking dinner, laughing with the mountains in the background. Leela put her phone down, her hands shaking. Ethan was moving on, looking happy, as if her betrayal was a thing of the past. And she was stuck in this tiny apartment, counting every dollar. She opened her laptop to distract herself, but instead of working, she found herself scrolling through social media. Tom mentioned that Ethan had gotten a promotion. He was now a senior engineer at his company. Leela remembered how they dreamed of a motorcycle, of riding the coast. Now he was living that life without her. The phone rang. Kate, as always, on time. "Hey, Leela," her voice was cheerful. "Are you still alive in your den? I want to drag you to the fair this weekend." "Hey," Leela breathed out, trying to sound normal. "I don't know, Kate. I just saw a post about Ethan. He's with someone named Emily, and he bought a motorcycle. He looks happy." "Oh," Kate paused. "Leela, are you surfing social media again? I told you to delete the app. It's only making things worse." "I know," Leela squeezed her mug. "But he's living our dream, Kate. The promotion, the motorcycle, the new girlfriend. And here I am, with a smoking toaster and freelancing for pennies." "Leela, stop." Kate raised her voice. "You can't compare. He has the right to move on. You made a choice, and so did he. That doesn't mean you're stuck forever. You're working on yourself, right?" "Yes," Leela nodded, though Kate couldn't see. "Therapy helps. But seeing him like this, it's not fair. I lost everything, and it's like he won." "It's not a competition," Kate softened. "You lost your marriage, but you're still here. You're talented, you'll find your way. But you have to stop looking at his life. Let's go to the fair. There will be waffles and local designers. Maybe you'll find a client." "Okay," Leela smiled despite herself. "Saturday, what time?" "At noon, by the entrance," Kate replied. "And wear something bright. Stop walking around like a ghost." Leela hung up, but her gaze returned to the phone. She opened another photo. Ethan and Emily on a picnic, him hugging her laughing. Leela felt a twinge of envy, but quickly pulled herself together. Emma, her therapist, had taught her to notice such emotions and figure out where they came from. Leela picked up the notebook Emma had asked her to keep and wrote, "Envy of Ethan. I feel like he's gotten everything and I've got nothing. But it's my fault. I need to work on myself, not whine." That evening, she went to work at a coffee shop, delivering orders. One of the customers, a man in a plaid shirt, noticed her badge with a logo she'd made for a local festival. "Are you the designer?" he asked, pointing to the badge. "Cool job. I own a bakery across the street. We need new branding. Interested?" "Seriously?" Leela perked up. "Yes, I'm a freelancer. I can show you my portfolio." "Great." He pulled out a business card. "I'm Brian. Write to me. We'll discuss it." "Thanks, Brian." Leela took the card, feeling her first surge of hope in a long time. "I'll be in touch tomorrow." After her shift, she returned home and opened her laptop to prepare an email for Brian. But her thoughts returned to Ethan. She remembered their conversations about the future, the lake house, the kids, the motorcycle he wanted to take her on rides along the coast. Now he was doing that with Emily. Leela closed her eyes, resisting the urge to open social media again. Instead, she called Emma, asking for an unscheduled session. The next day, Leela sat in front of her laptop, watching Emma via Zoom. "Leela, you look tense," Emma said, adjusting her glasses. "What's wrong?" "I saw Ethan on social media." Leela clasped her hands. "He has a new girlfriend, Emily. He bought a motorcycle, got a promotion. He's living the life we dreamed of. And I'm in this hole, working for pennies. It's not fair." "I understand," Emma nodded. "It hurts to see him move on. But let's get this straight. Why does it seem unfair to you?" "Because I lost everything." Leela raised her voice. "The house, him, our life. And it's like he lost nothing. He's happy, and I'm suffering." "Okay," Emma made a note. "You feel like he's been rewarded and you're being punished. But let's look at it this way. You both lost your marriage. You both experienced pain. His new life doesn't change what he experienced. And your pain isn't the end of your story. What do you do to move on? I work, Leela shrugged. I come to you. I try to find new clients. But every day it feels like I'm drowning. It's a step, Leela, Emma smiled. You're not drowning, you're walking. Slowly, but you're walking. You mentioned envy. What does it tell you about your desires? Leela thought about it. I want what he has. Stability, happiness, a sense of belonging. I thought I had that, but I ruined it. You destroyed the marriage, Emma nodded. But not yourself. You can build a new stability. What would you like to do right now to feel closer to that? I don't know, Leela sighed. Maybe I should focus on work. Today, a client offered me a project. It's something. That's already a lot, Emma nodded. Focus on that. And try to limit social media. It only feeds your envy. Deal? Agreed, Leela nodded, feeling a little relieved. The session ended, and she wrote down in her notebook, Don't look at social media. Focus on work. I can do this. The next day, Leela wrote to Brian, the bakery owner, and arranged a meeting. She arrived at his bakery, a small place that smelled of fresh buns. Brian, a man in his 40s with a good-natured smile, showed her his old business cards. They're out of date, he said, holding one out. I want something modern but cozy. Can you make it? Sure, Leela opened her laptop, showing her portfolio. Here, this is a logo for a coffee shop. Will a similar style work? Perfect, Brian nodded. How long will it take? A week for sketches, Leela replied. I'll send 3 options. You choose the best one. Excellent, he smiled. I'm glad I found you. The badge on you was like a sign. Leela left the bakery feeling a little more confident. She returned home and began working on sketches, drawing logos with bun silhouettes and warm colors. But that night, lying in bed, she thought about Ethan again. She didn't want to hate him, he had a right to be happy. But envy still burned. She opened her notebook and wrote, I envy him because I want to be in his place. But I can build my own. Start small with work, with myself. Leela Bennett sat at a small wooden desk in her new studio apartment in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood. The place was slightly larger than her old dump, with a window overlooking a quiet street and a shelf she'd built herself to hold her sketchbooks. It had been a year since Ethan had kicked her out of their house after finding out about her affair with Nate. A year filled with loneliness, working herself to death, and trying to figure out how she'd gotten here. Now, on a Saturday morning, Leela sipped coffee and scrolled through her laptop. On the screen was an email from her new employer, a small design studio that had hired her part-time. The job wasn't as prestigious as her previous projects with Urban Vibe, but it was stable, with a fixed salary and health insurance. For the first time in a long time, Leela felt like her life was starting to take shape. She opened the notebook she'd kept for her therapist, Dr. Emma Lawrence. The last entry read, I can't change the past, but I can work on myself. Sent in 3 new sketches today. Feeling more confident. Leela smiled as she reread the words. Therapy, which had begun almost a year ago, had helped her see her mistakes without the blinding guilt. She'd cheated on Ethan, ruined their marriage, but now she realized that her choices had been not only a reaction to his coldness, but also her own weakness wanting instant comfort instead of fighting for their relationship. Ethan wasn't perfect, and this admission freed her from the feeling that she alone was to blame. The phone vibrated. It was Kate, her friend who had stuck by her side through it all. Hey, Leela, Kate's voice was as energetic as ever. Are you ready for tonight? I made arrangements with the gallery guys for a night out. No excuses. Hi, Leela laughed, sipping her coffee. I'm not making excuses. What time should I come? 7, at the bar on the corner, Kate said. And wear something cool. I know you have that blue top you've been hiding. It's time to wear it. Okay, boss, Leela rolled her eyes. But only if you don't make me dance. No promises, Kate chuckled. Listen, I'm proud of you. You're really coming alive. New job, new apartment. This isn't the same Leela who whined on my couch. Thank you, Kate. Leela smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. Without you, I'd probably still be whining there. Of course, Kate laughed. Okay, see you tonight. Don't be late. Leela put down her phone and went back to her laptop. Her new job at Brightleaf Designs was creating branding for local businesses, cafes, bakeries, small startups. It was an urban vibe, but Leela appreciated the stability. Her latest project was a logo for a flower shop, and the owner, an older woman named Marta, had sent her a basket of daisies the day before with a note that read, "Leela, your designs are the soul of my shop. Thank you." Leela placed the flowers on the windowsill, reminding her that she could still create something good. She opened her email and responded to an email from her boss, Tara. "Tara, the coffee shop designs are done, attached files. Let me know if you need any edits." When she was done, Leela stood up and walked over to the mirror. Her blonde hair was shorter, she'd cut it to her shoulders, thinking it was a symbol of a new beginning. She put on jeans and the same blue top Kate had mentioned, and for the first time in a long time, she felt not just like a survivor, but like she was alive. In the evening, Leela entered the bar, where Kate's company had already gathered. These were her colleagues from the gallery designers, artists, a couple of marketers. Kate introduced Leela. "Guys, this is Leela, my design genius. She makes logos that will shock you." "Hi," Leela smiled, sitting down at the table. "Don't listen to Kate, she's exaggerating." "I'm not exaggerating," Kate nudged her with her elbow. "Show them your latest project, the one with the flowers." Leela pulled out her phone and opened a photo of a logo for a flower shop, a stylized flower with soft green lines. "Here," she said, handing over the phone. "Nothing special, but the customer is happy." "That's cool," said a guy named Dan, an artist with a tattoo on his arm. "Clean, but with character. Do you freelance?" "Not anymore," Leela shook her head. "I work at Brightleaf Designs, but sometimes I take small orders." "Cool," Dan nodded. "I have a friend who's opening a brewery. He needs branding. I can hook you up." "That would be great," Leela perked up. "Give me his contact, I'll write." The evening passed easily. Leela drank lemonade, laughed at Dan's stories about his failed exhibitions, and chatted with a girl named Sophie, who worked as an illustrator. For the first time in a year, she felt like a part of something, not just a guest at someone else's party. Kate caught her eye and winked. "See, life goes on." "Yes," Leela nodded, smiling. "Thank you for pulling me out." Later, at home, Leela opened her notebook and wrote, "Tonight was a good night. New people, new opportunities. I still miss Ethan, but I'm starting to see myself without him." She closed the notebook and went to bed, feeling the pain of loss fading a little. The following week, Leela met Emma for another Zoom session. Emma, as always, began with a smile. "Leela, you look better. What's new?" Yeah, probably better," Leela nodded. "Got a job at a studio. Not urban vibe, but stable. And yesterday I went to a party with Kate's friends. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lonely." "That's a lot of progress," Emma noted. "How do you cope with thoughts about Ethan?" Leela sighed, looking away. "I saw him on social media a couple months ago. He's with a new girlfriend, Emily. He's got a promotion, a motorcycle. He's happy. At first, I was angry. I thought it was unfair. But now, I realize he wasn't perfect. He was pulling away, and I didn't try to fix it. I took the easy way out, with Nate, and I ruined everything." "It's good that you see that," Emma nodded. "You take responsibility for your choices, but don't forget that marriage is a two-person job. Ethan contributed to the breakup, too. How does it feel to acknowledge that?" "Relieved," Leela shrugged. "But it still hurts. I miss our life home, morning coffee, plans. But I'm starting to see that I can build something new. Not like before, but my own." "This is an important step," Emma smiled. "You can't bring back the past, but you can create the future. What would you like for yourself in a year?" Stability, Leela answered without hesitation. A job where I feel like I belong. Friends who don't know me as the one who cheated. And forgiveness. I want to forgive myself. It's real, Emma nodded. You're already taking steps. Work, new connections, therapy. Keep going. And don't be afraid of small victories. The session ended, and Leela felt lighter. She opened her laptop and began working on a new project, branding for the brewery Dan had mentioned. Her sketches were simple but vivid, the silhouette of hops, the warm brown tones. She sent them to Dan with a note. Here are the first sketches. Pass them on to your friend. Let's see what he thinks. That evening, Leela went for a walk around the neighborhood. Fremont was vibrant, with colorful graffiti and small cafes. She stopped at a bookstore, bought a collection of short stories, and sat in the park, leafing through the pages. A woman with a dog passed by and smiled at her, and Leela smiled back. It was a small moment, but it reminded her that she was not invisible. When she got home, she wrote in her notebook, I made mistakes, but I'm not them. I have a job, friends, a chance. I can be better. Leela looked at the daisies on the windowsill, still standing from Martha. The pain of losing Ethan and their life was still there, but now there was a spark of hope. She could forgive herself, she could build a new life. And closing her eyes, Leela believed for the first time in a year that she could do it. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.